Phyrexian Obliterator is a card I'm sure we're going to see a lot of as soon as the new Phyrexia set drops. So let's look at some fun things we can do with it. Welcome back to Game School Dad with me, Martin, and we are looking at the Phyrexian Obliterator. Quite possibly the first card you're going to see overly used as soon as All Will Be One is released, because it has some insane abilities. It's a 5/5 for 4 mana with Trample, which is good in itself, but also whenever you deal damage to it, you have to sacrifice that many permanents. So if you can remove it with a Go for the Throat or an Exile effect, or bounce it back to the opponent's hand if they put it out, you're fine. But if you try and hit it with any red damage based removal, or hit it with any big green creatures, you're going to have to sacrifice pretty much everything. So it's going to be possibly the end of mono red, or at least a big setback in the mono red decks we're seeing at the moment. And I don't think we'll ever see green by itself for a while if Phyrexian Obliterator is as popular as I think it will be. So how can you use this? Obviously you can just throw it into your mono black deck if you want to, because to be honest, it's 4 black mana to cast, so you really want to make sure you cast it on turn 4, which means it competes a bit with Shield Red, because Shield Red is 4 mana as well, so they're both very good. But can we use the Obliterator in a way that might end the game by turn 5? Let's see what we can do with the Phyrexian Fight Club deck. So we want to get the Obliterator out as early as possible, but to have fight spells that are going to give us the most value out of the Obliterator, we need green. So imagine you have Phyrexian Obliterator out on the board, and you hit your opponent next turn with a Prize Fight, or a Bushwhack, or a Tail Swipe. Your creature fights their creature. If the opponent has a 7/7 or something big out at the time, you just target that. It doesn't matter that your Obliterator will die, because the opponent then has to sacrifice 7 permanents. And depending on what they have out, they might not have that many creatures. They might have to sacrifice a few of their lands. So that's going to really push them back. So we want to have some kind of fight spells, but the fight spells require green, and we require 4 black. So let's have a look at what we could do to possibly get this out and make this work in a deck in standard. Okay, so first of all, we need lots of removal to make sure we don't die to mono red before we can get the Obliterator out. So cut downs, Go for the Throat. We probably don't want to use Infernal Grasp. I don't think we want to lose any life here. Hopefully any small artifact creatures can die from cut down, and anything bigger, not an artifact, can die from Go for the Throat. Hopefully. We can put Infernal Grasp in if we want. We'll see. So we want fight spells, so when we get the Obliterator out, we can make the most of it. We've got 3 options here. We have Bushwhack, which is sorcery, and can also search for a land if needed. So we might want to search for a black land if we don't have enough swamps out at the time. We have Tail Swipe, which will is an instant, and will give the Obliterator a +1 if it's on our turn in the main phase, or can just be used on the opponent's turn and just straight fight without the +1. And we also have Prize Fight, which is a common from New Capenna, where we also create a treasure token afterwards. I don't know if the treasure token is really required, so I would probably not use Prize Fight. Then we have some other early creatures to get out, which might help us ramp up to get the Obliterator out earlier. So Gala Greeters can give us a treasure token when other creatures come out, and Llanowar Loamspeaker can also add a mana of any colour. Then we also have Gwenna, who is a legendary creature, which is a 2/3, which can tap to add 2 mana in any combination of colours, but we can only use it to cast creature spells, which is fine, because that's all we want. We want to get 2 black mana to cast our Obliterator on the next turn. So if Gwenna goes down on turn 3, on turn 4 you can tap, get 2 black mana from that, and the other lands that we have, and we should be able to get Obliterator down. Also, as an added bonus, when we cast Obliterator, which has 5 power, Gwenna will get a +1/+1 counter and will untap whenever we cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater. So that helps Gwenna come back as well. And this might also mean we get to use the Obliterator on its turn immediately, which is one reason why we don't want Prize Fight, because it's too expensive for the 2 mana. We could have 3 lands down on turn 3, put Gwenna out, and on the next turn, on our turn 4, we tap Gwenna for 2 black mana. Hopefully we have black from our other sources as well. Cast Obliterator, comes out, Gwenna untaps. If we have a fight spell on us and still have a green mana available, then we can go with Tail Swipe or Bushwhack and make Obliterator immediately fight the opponent's biggest creature. And if we don't have, we can probably just tap Gwenna again for 2 more black mana and maybe put out a prototype Fleshgorger as well. So that's not too bad on turn 4, getting Obliterator out and a Fleshgorger. I think the opponent might quit at that point. We also have a few other things here. Safekeeping, because obviously Obliterator is going to be a really big target. Everyone's going to be keeping extra go for the throats in their deck, because when Obliterator comes out, you want to kill it straight away. So safekeeping just to keep it on the board when they try to get rid of it. We also have Dig Up, which could be kind of slow if we're looking for the Obliterator with it, because it will cost 4 to search for the Obliterator and put it into our hand, or we can just use it to search for an extra land if we need it. So it can be used both ways. Obviously we have Fleshgorgers in there as well, because Fleshgorgers can come out on turn 3 and help protect us, slow things down if the opponent's on some kind of aggro. And then the last trick we have here is Diregraf Rebirth, because if we have to make our Obliterator fight the opponent's big creature and the Obliterator will die, then the opponent's going to have to sacrifice lots of permanents, which are probably going to be lots of creatures, which means Rebirth is going to cost us most likely 1 black and 1 green to bring the Obliterator back. And if 5 creatures have died that turn, Obliterator is one of them, so the opponent only has to have lost 4 other creatures, then we can cast the Rebirth once to bring something back, and we can cast it for the flashback at the same cost to bring back a second creature. So let's say they killed our Fleshgorger, we put out Obliterator, we make it fight a big creature, Obliterator dies, and for 4 mana we're bringing back the Obliterator and the Fleshgorger, and it's going to be the big Fleshgorger because it comes back as the 7/5. So Rebirth is going to be a very, very fun trick to bring things back if we have to sacrifice the Obliterator. For lands, we want to make sure we have enough green and enough black, so you can play around with how much green and black you think you need. It will be worth having the wastes that will do damage to us, because we have the Fleshgorger to gain some life back, or the Gala Greeters, and it's really important for us to get that black mana out. So if you have Llanowar Wastes, definitely include that. Jungle Hollow is a bit slower, but we gain some life. Deathcap Glade is pretty good as well. Then we want to have a good number of forests and swamps to cover the early game green mana that we need, and the 4 swamps for the Obliterator. Now, how many Obliterators do we want in this deck? I don't know. I think I would probably include at least 3. We do have a way to search for one if we don't have one in our hand, and we don't really want to have 4 and end up with 3 copies of them in our opening hand and having to mulligan. So probably 3 at the most, and bearing in mind it's a mythic, if you're on a kind of budget with your wildcards, I don't think you'll want to craft 4 mythics immediately. So maybe try 3, maybe 2 just to start with if you want to. But I'm going to say 3 for now. I don't have 3, so it's greyed out now, but maybe I'll give this a go. And then in order to make sure we've got the 60 spells, I would probably take out maybe a Bushwhack. We want to have the early removal. Do we need the safekeeping? Possibly not, considering the Rebirth will bring things back. But we could use Safekeeping to give our Obliterator indestructible, and then use a fight spell against anything really big, in which case we don't lose the Obliterator. That's another thing we could do with this. So this is being recorded before Phyrexia actually comes out, so I'm going to have to test this against Sparky using a historic version of the card, which is just the same as the standard version coming out. So just to show you this in action, I'm going to unfortunately completely destroy Sparky with it, and at least we'll get to see how it works. So any threats at the beginning, easily remove those. Right, we now have enough to put out Obliterator if we want to. I'll take 1 damage from the wastes. I think it's worth it. Pacifism, which could be a problem if it wasn't for the fight spells. Taking some damage. Okay, but now we have 3 fight spells. Okay, let's take out 3 of their permanents straight away. Well, and that one, so that's 4. Easily lose some land. How about we do that again? Let's pay some green. And they've had to get rid of the pacifism as well, which is a nice extra bonus. And let's go again. So if it doesn't win you a game, removing absolutely everything the opponent has and then back to nothing, well, I'll be surprised. Not that any game in the against actual people is going to be anywhere as easy as playing against Sparky. But I'm sure you get the point. No lands left, nothing in their hand, they can't do anything. And that's how the Obliterator works. Not that it's going to be quite that easy in standard games as it is against Sparky. Sparky's obviously going to be the easiest opponent we could ever face. But with the Obliterator out and just a few fight spells, we managed to actually remove everything the opponent had, including all the lands. So suddenly, if they don't have any lands in their hand, they can do absolutely nothing. And we took some damage at the beginning of that one, but we didn't have any of our early creatures out. We didn't have Gala Greeters, the Loamspeaker, or Gwenna to absorb some of the damage or block some of the damage. But even then, getting the Obliterator out as soon as we could, and with a few fight spells in our hand, we managed to completely wipe the board of everything. So, I would love to know what you think. Are you going to use the Phyrexian Obliterator at the beginning of the new set coming out? I can guarantee you're going to see lots of other people are trying it out. And it is a mythic wildcard, so it's up to you if you have a mythic wildcard you want to spend on it. I wouldn't go crazy with it to start with, but it's nice to have a deck here that actually only uses one of the new cards from the new set. There are other cards from a new set that would work even better in a deck like this, but if you're on a budget, if you're just using what you've got, then any combination of early creatures that give you treasure or can tap for mana, some removal, some fight spells, or searching your library, and the Obliterator are going to do a lot of work for you. If you don't have Phyrexian Fleshgorger, then any other creature you can get out before the Obliterator is probably a good thing. But with the Rebirth, I felt like having a Fleshgorger that could die and bringing it back is a nice trick as well. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget you can like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on any future videos on getting the most value and fun out of playing MTG Arena. That's all for today, so thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video.